Okay, so theoretically we're live. I'm just going to check to make sure that we are live.
Tim's a pro at this already, but this is my first time YouTube Live.
YouTube Live? Oh, nope, we're live. Good stuff. And there's probably a few people in there already, so awesome. Well, welcome to this live stream. So we're I'm going to mute this so that I'm not hearing myself three times over. But my name is Ben Reed. I am here with a couple amazing and smart fellas that all have experience in the world of diagnostics in residential HVAC. And a lot of this is relating towards, auxiliary systems that can be connected to residential HVAC systems that can provide information, not just to the homeowner, but also to the professional that would be curating that homeowner's air and indoor environment. And so what we're doing in today's live stream is kind of discussing, debating, sharing some more stories about, our experiences and frustrations with the current state of the market. And then we might kind of explore a little bit of, the bigger problem of trying to see where the opportunities lie to make things better. And we'll go from there. So, let's just do introductions first. So, my name is Ben. Lots of background in telecommunications, IoT, product engineering and design, and product management. And then right now I'm currently doing some work with MeasureQuick, but previously I did a couple years at Haven working with their indoor air quality platform. So that's me. Who wants to go next? Mr. Tim.
Tim DeStasio. I'm an HVAC contractor, designer, trainer, learner of the trade, consultant, and I've done a little bit of everything from industrial to residential, a little bit of controls, and in my 25 years of experience, I am just wanting to see something that resembles a light version of a building automation system for HVAC that we can deploy in every house out there, regardless of this type of system it was, and actually be able to get these systems performing correctly and do it where the end user can afford to have it done and the contractor can make money off of it.
Awesome. Donald?
So I work for my family's heating and air conditioning company. Been there a little over 20 years, I believe going on 23. But yeah, I grew up around the industry. So I've spent most of my career focusing on things like troubleshooting and just regular annual maintenance, customer education and things like that. Since about 2017, it's moved into actually quoting installations and building up material lists and going through performing the installation itself, checking the equipment afterwards. So it's quickly turning into a massive spider web. But aside from that, in my personal life, it's just I've always been the type of person to ask, probably far too often, I tend to ask why and how. Are the two biggest things I always want to know. I'm a visual learner, so I have to see things in front of me. So, in regards to what we're about to talk about, that's one of the biggest things is the visuals, right? Yeah. Aside from that, thanks for having us. Yeah.
And Chris?
Yeah. My name is Chris Hamilton. I worked for mechanical contracting company in South Florida for 6 or 7 years, and then kind of broke out and made my own tech company in the HVAC space. Did a lot of controls, installations, and tracking, remote monitoring of systems. Just looking at HVAC through the data was what I did at my company. But I've since left that company, but the bug to, as Donald would say it, it just hasn't left me, knowing why and how things are happening. I have all these sensors installed in my own. I have a commercial stat installed on my little 2-ton system for no reason, because I, want to get to, as Tim alluded to, a better control system for the buildings that need better controls. There's too much out there that's just all over the place. And if we had all the information consolidated in one place, it would empower everyone to make better decisions about, what they own, their equipment, and allow, us as contractors and people in the space to service and maintain it better. So yeah, I just like nerding out with you guys, and getting connected on LinkedIn was super fun. So I'm excited about this conversation.
Awesome. And it looks like that YouTube decided to post the stream to an entirely new stream. So the original event, I'm just trying to, I'll just add some comments here to make sure that everyone knows that where to find this stream. So apologies, everyone.
No worries.
Technology.
Okay. Yeah, always makes things easy. Okay. Awesome. Well, so I think we had a little bit of banter before we started, and I think there's some similarities in that we have all, I guess, hit limits, hit frustrations with the current offerings that are on the market. So maybe let's just quickly dive into that. Is like, Tim, what's the most frustrating thing out there about the existing options for, let's say, if you were to offer monitoring to your customers, like what is making it very difficult to do that well? What are you looking for?
Well, one of the biggest players that I was most excited about decided to call it quits. And if I were a contractor that deployed a bunch of those, I'd be pretty angry. So I think one of the frustrations is that it has to be important enough to the industry where that's not going to happen again. But yeah, the frustration is there's not a lot of choices out there, and the choices that are out there are very limited in the data they give. Almost hilariously so, where you can't expect to do any kind of remote diagnosis. You can't even expect to get any notes or faults with the data that they're collecting. And it's I see untapped potential, and yeah, that's a source of frustration because we can do better.
Cool. Yes. Anybody, you just jump in. I don't have to call you out for giving you turns. Who wants to
Chris, you go ahead. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah. I mean, man, being in the space, being an owner of a tech company in the space, trying to solve this problem and trying to break through, some of the bigger frustrations that we were coming across was, unwillingness to be sort of communal about it from manufacturers, from the people who were producing the data, and how complex it was for them to make it available to, as Tim had been doing, building his own dashboard. There's not a lot that you can do at scale like that today because you just don't have agreement from the players that exist. And so if there can be some sort of open source, something as we've alluded to in the past call a little bit on this one, where no matter what your hardware is, you can put the data into this central database somewhere and then utilize these. Hey, I have this data. Let me grab this algorithm, this algorithm, this algorithm. It'll give me these faults. And with that, I can maintain my system better. I can feel better that my family's getting fresh air, CO2 is not high, that my system isn't going to go down right before I have a party, all of the residential stuff. And it's easy enough to say for us as HVAC nerds, thinking that that's the most important thing. But, from my experience, and, I'm sure we all have partners in our lives, and mine does not care about HVAC at all. It's like her eye. It's like she doesn't know that it exists until she gets dirt in it. It's so unless there's an issue, it's not the top of mind. And so how can we create something modular where we can get the information in the hand of the owner so that they get the information that they need without, making it overly complicated. And so it's just the frustrating part is since 2018, working on this and selling it, and COVID changed a lot. And it's been a long haul to get here. And now with Sensi Predict going down, it was just, I don't know, feels like we've made no progress, and now there's bits and bobs everywhere and nothing to come for it.
Kind of like, well, that was nice, but let's go back to business as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think my biggest frustrations, let me just say this. I've tried a couple different air quality devices. I'm going to keep product names out of this, but I've tried air quality devices, a few of them. I have an electrical usage monitor, HVAC system analysis product. And then I've got some other power usage monitors installed in the home just to use comparatively to check the main one that I installed. But my frustration is, the few companies that came real close to hitting the mark, one of them gave up. The other one insists on using internet data for a lot of their algorithms that just don't keep up with what's happening on site. But it's also a lack of visualization. So one of the things here that I should have mentioned in the beginning, I'm kind of the odd man out here. You guys all have business ownership experience in that. I've worked for my family company, but I'm not a business owner. So I tend to speak from two sides, right? I can speak to you from what I see in the field as a technician, but I also have a lot more experience here as a homeowner, as a general consumer using these products, right? And what I as a consumer choose to do with them. So I think where my frustration is really still resting to this day is there's no way of, like you said, Chris, consolidating all this data, making sense of it as a big picture of what's going on, and then some of the benefits I got from it as a homeowner was, and I guess these were sort of unexpected benefits, but it started getting me used to what actually happens in my home on a day-to-day basis. So, normally it's just two people in this almost 700 square foot house, but on days where I decide to have a bunch of people over, or, let's say I decide to change the way my thermostat is, what temperature it's set at or whatever, I can now see as a homeowner what my decisions are doing to my electrical usage and things like that. And then I can go sit at my desk and I can quickly calculate, is this going to cost me a lot more this month? Is it not? It's really neat the way you can use data from all these different programs and quickly throw them together to give yourself a picture of what is it doing right now and should I be concerned about it?
Yeah, there's a bit of a trend here where I think agency is one of the things that really unite us together, because I also have, I guess on my side, I've been basically tinkering. I've been building my own sensors for like about 10 years now. My wife doesn't care. I've spent probably hundreds of hours making little automations in my homes that every room there's motion sensors. You walk into the room, it understands the time of day, it turns on the lights to the specific brightness for that time of day. And when it works, it's magical. The 2% of the time it doesn't work, the whole system just needs to be thrown out, is kind of what my wife, hints at, because of how frustrating it is to her. And that kind of is just, that's how homeowners also really treat a lot of this stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's been so much of these like attempts at trying to solve this problem. And like, even with Sensi Predict, like there was a lot of like, the more scope that you try to kind of stuff into something, really you end up kind of hamstringing yourself, because now you have to support all that scope. You need to have all the resources to support that level of scope. On my side, like in working kind of in the product management side of inside of one of these organizations, trying to make a diagnostics and monitoring platform, it was always so hard because the amount of scope that it looked like we could do versus the amount that the resources within the company could do, there's always such a mismatch. But then I would look at other projects like in the open source space where I would see certain features just go along at just such a exponential clip, because they were able to, I guess, there's some magic about some of these like projects out there. Like let's say Grafana would be a great example of something. Chris, you probably played around with it. It's a visualization platform that is just an absolute like juggernaut, that is able to just is so feature rich in what it can do for visualization. And whenever I kind of use a different dashboarding platform, I'm just always so disappointed because I'm just like, it doesn't, like, I can't actually do all these transforms inside. I can't like manipulate my like these SQL statements to be able to compare this data set with this data set. I can't bring in this plugin to like give myself a psychrometric chart right in the web browser. Like why can't other things just do this? And I understand that there's like, having been inside these organizations, there's so many difficult decisions that I know that they have to make all the time to kind of balance their various competing priorities. But for me, I've been using a particular set of open source tools around my home, like Home Assistant, and the level of, I guess, capabilities in it have really got me thinking, just being like, why the heck can't something like this be applied to this space? I don't know if it would be specifically Home Assistant or not, but why couldn't there be something in this space that could get that level of functionality and execution that provides all that agency? Because I really think that that's kind of a, like I said at the beginning of my little spiel here, agency is the ability to have ownership of your data, the ability to point it to where you want it to go, the ability to like even redact, kind of saying that, hey, that data that's going to that cloud for that extra analysis, I'm going to turn that faucet off and now I'm going to take it back and do something else with it. But balancing that against, like, the more you take that type of agency to control it, now you're just giving yourself that much extra work. So it's such a hard balancing act, because like I know I spend many hours tinkering and like, I guess some people would call it wasting time, but I like doing it, and I think that there are, like, this goes to one of the I'm just going to pull up a quick slide here about let me just share my window, share this one, kind of like just level setting about, we're not, I don't know if we're trying to solve, or like the frustrations that we have. Like, yes, we are, like, Donald, you're kind of a homeowner, but you're also a very technical person that understands HVAC. And so we're not talking about like the regular, let's say, family who parents are school teachers and there's kids and they know nothing about HVAC or IoT. That's not who we are. We're right. Kind of more in this group that would embody these personas or kind of these segments. Is
Absolutely.
So that's what we're looking for. The things that we would be trying to achieve as we're kind of going on this exploration is going to be very different than people that just want it to work. Because if you just want it to work, you're willing to give away all that agency. You're willing to have somebody else make those decisions for you.
Well, and I think there's a huge portion of the market of people that are just like that they just want it to work. They don't really care about what are they running towards and what are they running away from. The only time that really people get involved in those sort of things is when it hits their wallet. So they get a energy bill that is shocking, or it's just not comfortable in their house, or they're spending a bunch of money on repairs, and then all of a sudden they would probably be interested in it. And so we have to figure out what those pain points are. And I think, for example, utility companies, a big push on programmable thermostats, big push on Wi-Fi thermostats. Now they can turn their AC off remotely if the power grid gets a little overwhelmed. That got a lot of support. Like it or hate it, it got a lot of support from utility companies, and they drive this industry more than I think we realize. And so being able to have an onboard diagnostic capability of saying, okay, the house that's on 101 Elm Street is running really inefficiently. It's running at about 6 SEER. We need to send them an alert that this thing is going to cost them a lot more energy. And if they want to continue getting a break in their energy bill because they signed up for this program of monitoring and they're going to maintain their system so that it's not a drain on the energy grid, they better get this thing fixed within a week, or else they don't qualify for that rebate or that special rate on. I mean, it's got to hit the homeowner in some way. People like us, we'll do it just because it's cool. We'll do it just because we can or we want to. But most people aren't going to do that. So we got to figure out like what motivates them. And I'm sorry, when gas was $5-6 a gallon, everybody started buying Priuses. As soon as it came down to $3 a gallon, everybody was looking for a Suburban again. What hits people's wallets motivates them to adopt certain things.
Yeah, I think there's certain people who just, they're not going to find value in these things. And unfortunately, I'm starting to feel like that's the vast majority of the population, just like it's the vast majority of our politicians and industry owners. But it's that human nature to focus on what's right in front of you. And when we have so many tasks in front of us every day, I think anything that's going to make that more complex instead of quickly, very like, give it to me, just throw it in front of me, tell me what's wrong, tell me how to deal with it, and let's get on with the day. If we can't find a program or a system that can do that, then I don't think homeowners are going to find value in it. I don't think because most HVAC companies are small businesses with low overhead, right? They don't have a whole lot to invest in new ventures. So yeah, it's got to be low cost and readily available.
And from my perspective, and I think that's what, and I'm only going to mention Sensi Predict because that's kind of what started them pulling back, is what started these conversations. I think that's what they got right, was the fact that these homeowners don't care that much about the actual technology. They don't care about looking at this data every day like we do. Sensi Predict partnered with contractors and said, hey, we can, through this new technology, now give you better service. And we can do it maybe at the same price. Maybe it's slightly different. For a contractor to make money, they need that revenue coming in. And that recurring revenue on a monthly basis for a monitored service program was a big deal. And it was a smart way to go about selling this and doing business. And I think that's what they got right. And I think that anything that we would choose to move forward with would need some sort of partnership. Tim brought up, the electrical companies and how you can partner with them. And as someone who worked directly with the manufacturer of a controller to get that demand response built into our equipment, it's tough to work with those companies. They will not put or recommend anything until it has been on trial for years, 10 years. Like they are pretty much laggards of the industry, and you can tell by the state of our electrical grid and why DER is even necessary. So finding the right partnerships to move forward with kind of whatever we find here is good. And I think partnering with mechanicals is the right way to go about it, because they're the ones who see the equipment. They're the ones who are going in people's homes and getting that initial, I can already tell what's going to be wrong with this system when you walk in a lot of homes. Just being on site matters. And so now if we can arm that technician with a little bit more information and guide them through, hey, we got this information about this unit, so you need to start here versus starting, somewhere else. You can reduce the amount of time that a technician is on site. You can send a technician out who's a little bit greener, because now they have information that they can use. And so the customer gets better peace of mind knowing that someone's going to come out and fix something and be on site for less time, meaning less money out of their pocket. And then it's more efficient for the contractor themselves. And you get newer, younger techs in the game, more getting used to technology, drawing them into the trades because there is that trade gap. And so I think from my perspective, partnering with contractors moving forward is the right way. We just need to do it better than what Sensi Predict had done.
And so there are a lot of other companies trying to do it better. And so I don't want this to kind of be like a step-by-step evaluation of each one of these other companies, but to I'd kind of put down a few considerations to guide our conversation on this, where if so I will just name a couple of names. Like there's the like you said, Senseware, they do this. There's AVX, there's Haven, there's okay, screw it. I'll just kind of blast through a couple of these real quick. There's a newcomer that is completely hardware free. Probably, just connecting to thermostat APIs to be able to do maintenance and analytics. There's a Smart AC, which is gaining a huge amount of traction right now and getting really good reviews. There is AVX, which, it's some of you have used it and it has got a lot of features. There's, the Sentry system, which is all cellular, but a little bit more for property management. And so, and then on top of that, there is communicating systems, like whether you have your train kind of the, or the what's Carrier Infinity. There's a couple of these communicating systems that they're all getting IoT built into them. They're getting smart maintenance plans built into them.
Right.
If you're authorized dealers, it's all just going to be baked in moving forward. And even beyond that, these smart thermostat manufacturers, like Nest has a little bit of a program, and Ecobee, they've worked with pros before on trying to unlock some of these features. And so everybody's doing it is kind of what I'm getting at is that there's a I'm trying to explore is it what Sensi Predict did? It was pretty advanced, it's similar to what AVX has with all their probes. But is there any space for creating something that isn't filling the voids of all these other companies?
So you work with MeasureQuick, and MeasureQuick is gaining a lot of traction. MeasureQuick, a huge portion of that traction is with utility companies, where I assume we're quantifying the performance and the efficiency of a system, and that's important to a utility company. I know we've kind of talked a little bit back and forth behind the scenes, but I've been thinking about this for weeks, and I don't know if it's in the works or not, but my dream would be a metering or a HVAC monitoring box that was powered by MeasureQuick, because MeasureQuick's already got this figured out. They know how to quantify the performance and do diagnostic on older systems, on communicating systems. They've got all that. We just have to go out there physically and put probes on. What if we had a box that had wired probes that took exactly the data that MeasureQuick gets on a non-invasive performance check, and we just had those hardwired into the system, no batteries, it runs off the system 24 volts, and it connects to the internet? Because a lot of the problems that we're seeing and the shortfalls of a lot of the other companies that you're talking about, MeasureQuick is a common denominator. They've got the sensors that I would want to see. You're using the data that I want to see. They're giving you live SEER efficiency as the system's running. They're going to be able to tell you whether the system is running right or not. You let MeasureQuick know if you're actually getting a call for cooling or heating, because right now we start a MeasureQuick workflow, we're telling it I'm calling for cooling. But if you tied in your 24-volt low voltage wires, or if there was a way that we could know from the thermostat or from the communicating system that, yeah, we're calling for cooling, MeasureQuick knows what to do with that data. And so I would love to see that where, and then maybe even MeasureQuick integrates. I mean, we already work really well with Haven. And we see that that cooperation with those two companies. Instead of having a hardwire return duct sensor, you tap into the Haven's return temperature humidity sensor instead. Now that's one less sensor you got to put in. I mean, I think that's got to be explored. I mean, we've got people that really care about this industry. They just need the resources to get it done. But all those challenges, it keeps coming back to MeasureQuick to me, because as powerful as that software and putting Jim Bergman's brain into every home constantly, I mean, you can't tell me that's not a winning combination.
In theory, yes. And I just wanted to make sure that this is not a promotional.
No, this is just me. Look, I'm a MeasureQuick certified trainer. I appreciate what they're doing, and they're not paying me to say this. I mean, this is just me saying this is what works. It's the only thing that works right now. Other than that, you're sending some 17-year-old kid out there to diagnose a system, and we've tried that. It doesn't work.
So I just want to jump in here. I'm not knocking any services or anything like that, but as a technician, I feel I need to say a few things. MeasureQuick is an incredible system that requires way too much time and effort from me as a technician, that takes my focus away from my main job, which is to go over that system both visually and through testing to make sure that it is in the condition it should be in. And so as a technician, I have found many times with many devices over the years that you can easily fool these things. Okay, so I'll just pose this question to you, not to answer now, but I want you to think about it, Tim, as you're using, or all of you, as you're using MeasureQuick. Try and fool the system. You test out a system that you know to be filthy and disgusting and find out what results it's going to give you. Is it going to tell you that that system still checks out because you're getting the minimum airflow that it requires to get you into the green zone? And as long as you're green, the customer's going to let you walk away. I disagree. That is not the way we should be doing things. We should not be getting people to the bare minimum. We've lived with code for 100 years, and code was never anything more than bare minimum. We need to get better.
And I think, the little thing that I'll add on to that is, the thing that I was always taught going out with technicians in the field was RTFM. You know, you just and that it seems to be lost with a lot of technicians out in the field right now. And so much can be done if you just sit down and take a little bit of time and know the unit that you're going to be looking at, that you're installing, that you're commissioning, that you're doing service on, maintenance on, anything. And, if we can instill the right, sort of fundamentals in technicians, then MeasureQuick becomes a very good tool for them to have in their tool belt. But we don't want people walking up who were, changing filters or working in the auto industry and then just say, hey, here's MeasureQuick, now go, service HVAC equipment, because that won't work. So I think there's an in-between. There's an in-between what Tim and Don are both saying, that that can be brought together to make the industry do service and maintenance better. And it comes with more data, which MeasureQuick currently offers, but a lot of other things, exactly what we've said, also offer all of that data. And I know I had heard Jim talk previously, I don't know where it was like, when you do service and maintenance on a system, you don't need to put hoses on every time. You don't need to, if you do it once, when the first time you go out there, maybe all you do need to install are, without being, device agnostic, you put these just 4 super easy, maybe they're just magnetic sensors, temperature and humidity, that you put on a vent or inside a return or something like that. And then just from those, if you know how the system was, if you have that MeasureQuick report and you know exactly what was going on, and then you see these deviating from that baseline, then you know that you have to go out in perform service. So
Right. And that's where systems like Sensi Predict and AVX, they hit the mark dead on. You've got a few sensors, you've got knowledge of what the thermostat is doing, and now we can derive a whole bunch from the system. What is the room temperature desired? What is it at right now? What's my return temperature and what's my discharge temperature? Right? Is the discharge higher than the return? Then we can assume that the call for heat went through. We can assume that the call for heat has been successfully engaged, however you want to say it, right? But yeah, exactly. Use few sensors to do some really smart prediction. Now, going back to what I said, that's not to say that Measure Quick doesn't have its places. It's just using Measure Quick on service calls as a replacement for the actual service is kind of what I'm trying to warn against. Okay. Now, if one day customers start calling us up and saying, Custom Vac, can you send out one of your technicians to do a performance analysis on my system? Then yeah, I'll pull Measure Quick out and I'll start working with it. But when customers are phoning up asking for troubleshooting help and service calls or yearly maintenance, they're asking for physical work to be done. And if all we're doing is showing up with tablets and saying it's good or not, and if it's not, now's your chance to tell me whether or not you're okay with paying me more. It sets up an uncomfortable situation there, but that's a whole other conversation, right?
See, I think you're getting wrong with what I was getting at. We don't show up there with tablets. We show up with a coil cleaning gun, and we show up there to do the actual maintenance, cleaning, and visual inspection.
No,
but
I
the
get
performance check is done at another time. It's done remotely. Alerts are sent to us. The person that we're sending out does not need to be an experienced diagnostician, because, guys, we're going to have a very few of them in the next few years. And so we have to accept that RTFM is not happening, and it's not going to happen. Okay, we can do our best. And there's people like you, like the four of us, that will always RTFM, and then the rest of them are not. And we've got to get to the point where we've accepted that. And now we're going to be process driven, and we're not reliant on the person that goes out there. Unfortunately, we have to accept the fact they're not going to do the job that we're going to do. And I used to have sort of a pie in the sky mentality as a employer, that I was going to be able to take these people and I was going to make super techs out of them just like me. And it doesn't work. We need to just establish a process, tell them what to look for, clean the unit. And when are we going out there to do these maintenances? It's in shoulder season. Now we got to expect them to understand the performance of that system when it's 57 degrees outside. And we expect them to check the system performance so that it doesn't break down later on in July. I mean, that is a very tall order. But what if Measure Quick was monitoring the system throughout the year, and when it got hot, we don't need a person out there to check the performance. We've already got all those sensors already there. And if there's a problem, it'll let us know. But we know that unit's clean because we sent that person out there to clean the unit, tighten connections, visually inspect components, and find things that need to be done based on those inspections. But they do not need to do a performance check. We decouple the performance check from the maintenance agreement, and that's done 24/7 remotely. And you can market that. You can market, we're monitoring your performance 24/7 instead of 2 times a year. And I think there's value to that.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with any of that, and I apologize if I misspoke. It's just I'm just trying to be conscious that there are people out there watching this conversation, right? And so I don't want to give the impression that you can just show up with something like Measure Quick and all of a sudden, everything's great.
Yeah. So
it would have to be a system that's already been like commissioned and benchmarked, and then you just install these sensors on there and they just continue on.
Yeah.
Let's look back to on the topic of kind of diagnostics. There's I think, Tim, you went through and said, here's what my perfect diagnostic system would be. So Chris, what would be your perfect diagnostic system?
Oh man, yeah, it depends because it's like my personal one or the one that I think could be for a mass market to do the most good, and
And
those are two different things.
so
Uh,
maybe briefly talk about both, but I'm kind of leading towards we'll yeah.
okay, yeah. I mean, for me, I would want electrical monitoring. The biggest thing you can predict so many failures just with electrical monitoring.
Power factor.
That is the most expensive thing that we're going to install on monitoring wise. Besides making sure that the thing is communicating, that's the hardest thing to really get installed and then maintain, and the most expensive. But if we
You can
just had,
actually do it for $30.
say that.
I say you can actually do it for $30, but we can get into that later.
Okay, yeah. That's a little bit of the disconnect now with me being mostly in like commercial space versus residential. But from a residential or like commercial thing, electrical monitoring, supply air, return air, and then refrigerant temperature. I looked into refrigerant pressures in getting those sensors and getting one built and working with a company in China. And with physics and calculations, you don't need it. It's too much of a hassle to install and can put so many contaminants into the system that you wouldn't want if it's done incorrectly, and it just doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
Yep.
So just the least amount to get the job done would be electrical, supply air, return air, and then line set.
That's what Measure Quick non-invasive testing is.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. They're just including humidity in there so you can get some enthalpy. But that's it.
Yeah, humidity at the stat as well. And to what Don has said, because I know I don't know, maybe AVX does, but I haven't seen it since. Do you know specifically? It's not connected to the thermostat. I know the guy who ran AVX said, "Hey, we don't.
Yeah. So
we want to be, so we don't know anything about the thermostat. We think that thermostats won't exist in 10 years."
So do you want me to explain a little bit about how that particular system works, or?
I mean, I'm not super interested in it.
Anytime you want to send me a message, I can explain it to you. But yes, they do see thermostat communication. They see temperature in the duct, both return and discharge, and they see both liquid line, suction line temperatures, or hot gas and liquid line, right? So, in any event, I agree with you. Electrical data is probably the number one. Then you need air quality data, whether it be temperature and humidity or more than that. But with those two things, you can answer a lot of questions. Absolutely. There are again, I would say, if I have to answer what I believe was your question, what would the system look like for me? I think what I'm visualizing is more the dashboard end of things. I want to see something.
Ask about that too.
Yeah, I want to see something laid out with all my readings, and not just that, but a chart or two on the side saying this is how things are comparing to each other, and then the ability to bring different systems together, because I think the reality is we should accept the fact that there is no one system. It's building one system is not only going to be too complex, too wasteful of space or resources like wiring and stuff like that. It's just and it becomes too expensive to the homeowner and to the contractor. So I think we need to find a way to unify systems. And I think for me, that focus is more on the dashboard end of things. So whether it be a web app, a web dashboard, or a mobile app, we need to get that information out efficiently. That's all I'm really focused on right now.
And Chris, you were kind of before the session too. You were talking about that, how the dashboarding or the data aggregation side is like that's a big wish list item for you.
Yes, definitely. And you even mentioned it, where I can basically say I can create my own graph if I want. I've had that with certain dashboards that I've used where I would say, okay, give me electrical pull, give me supply air, and give me humidity all on the same graph, and then okay, let me know when Y1 and G are running. All on the same graph. And you can build that and then you can display it right there. Or you can have, hey, we have these also 5 graphs that are our, cookie cutter ones that just come standard. And if you want to build this one and be more of a nerd like us, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you need the nerd module.
Yes. The way that you explained that graph, it almost sounded like a ChatGPT prompt, where you're like, give me all of these elements in this formatting and have this type of comparison. Like literally, they're extensions for now the generative AI systems that can build that for you. Like that exists now. And so, but I'm not seeing that bleed through. Like that's a specific paradigm, that type of like that flexibility of kind of being like, I want to visualize things. I want to have I have a not a notion, but like I currently just want to see it this way, and then you're not hamstrung by either your lack of understanding of a system or the finite qualities of a system that's built for the mass market. And so I actually think that there's a kind of market. There's a slide here on market forces that we had briefly tossed up, but I would say that it is. I'll just replace that with a window. Sorry, this one. Unless it's going to break. I don't know. It's being a little bit buggy for me right now. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But there's these new convergences of technology that I think there's going to be an explosion of new capabilities. And a lot of these companies that have been building out these kind of either platforms with very like highly curated interfaces, like all the tens of thousands of hours that they might have put into those designs. It's not that it'll be thrown out the window, but you're going to now see these new companies popping up within the next year where now we have a more human element where the system will understand, just being like, okay, so I'm going to look at the data in the back end, like I know maybe it's connected to MeasureQuick. So it's like, I know what the normals should be. I actually understand a huge amount of information here so that I know usually what people are looking for, but also I know what is in spec and out of spec. And then on top of that, now I know the context of my user and what my user is usually looking for. And so I'm just going to, oh, come on, stop telling me to stuck in like a loop. But anyways, we're at this precipice where the AI is, I'm not like an AI kind of, I guess, a super fan. Like I'm a big skeptic of it, but it's going to be good at some very, very particular things. And I think this is one of them, is being able to help us get to that point where we have that flexibility and control over something, over a domain. The domain of dashboards and interfaces have usually been kept up in kind of this high tower of design. And I think that's going to kind of get unlocked in the next little while. And then secondly, I think what's happening with matter and thread is really, really interesting to me, because very soon all of these devices, even some of the new HVAC manufacturers are already equipping their devices to be thread and matter compatible. Where instead of having proprietary systems, now what it is that you have I just installed some new smart plugs, and these new smart plugs, you can actually commission them. You can connect them with up to 6 different parallel smart home systems at once. So that means that you can actually have the data going to, if you end up getting devices that are connected with matter and thread, the future is going to be that you buy a temperature sensor, you connect it to your Honeywell thermostat. If it's matter and thread compatible, you can also connect it to your custom system at the same time. So that's there's some really interesting innovations coming up fairly soon. And so I think that whether it's, a group of, people like us that wanted to pursue some sort of an open source cobbled together thing, or if it's going to be those other companies that are coming out. I just think that the paradigms are shifting so quickly that what's currently on the market is going to be there's going to be a lot of change. And
I think if that change comes in the way of like the matter and thread standardizing and all of these things, if the manufacturers are putting in now sensors that are pre-installed and already there and already saying like, hey, here's my data, who's going to come get me, then that could be huge for us, because at the end of the day, exactly everything you said with AI and building of a dashboard and everything else, like you need to have some sort of database somewhere where all of that information is going to sit and stay. And is it going to disappear when I reload this dashboard? Like how long is that data there for? There's a lot of questions around, database management in that way. But if there's like an AI component that I would see working with this, it would be we have an interface that sits over a centralized database, and we can go in and we can say, the homeowner can go in and say, hey, what was my average temperature over the past month? And then it just pops it right up, because that's what they want to know. Hey, is my HVAC system healthy right now? Thumbs up, thumbs down. That's all they want to know. For us, from our perspective, we can do a little bit more and type in our more complicated questions to there, and then get that data right in our face. Or, because it doesn't have to be just an AI platform, it's AI enabled, but then we also just want to be able to see our data exactly how we want to see it, ignore kind of what the AI can do, and just, I'm going to build this myself. And it's all with that data. So exactly what you said, I think AI could be helpful, both from our perspective, on the nerdy side, but then also for the homeowner, the simplicity of just being able to go into somewhere and it just has a search bar where you just type like ChatGPT and just say, hey, what was this with this system in my house? And then it just comes up with an answer. I mean, that seems to be the future, but it's all a matter of how that data is accessed. And I think that's where our whole
if it's accessible
conversation gets to.
Yeah, two things on that though. Nothing about HVAC manufacturers that I've observed in my career leads me to think they're ever going to put 2 5-cent sensors on their supply and return just because they're nice guys. And they're not going to share data with their competitors because they're so competitive. And then the other thing is HVAC owners, contractors that are overwhelmed, no one's going to adopt this thing other than the nerds. It's got to be easy. It's got to be plug and play, or else it's not going to take off. And owners have to see the value in it. And the only value that I see that we can get out of it is we can service more customers with less butts and trucks. Mm-hmm. And that's a pain every owner faces. But you can't spend 3 hours installing it. You can't have a battery fail and then you've got to make a trip to change out a little watch battery. You got to the internet's got to work on the thing. The sensors can't fail after a year, and now you got to roll a truck out there to replace the sensor. Those stupid little things that happens with technology because nobody builds anything correctly anymore. And I'll step off my soapbox. That kind of stuff is not going to work, and contractors are just going to reject it. They're going to get burned, and then they'll never talk to you again. And that's happened how many times with? I mean, look, I used to be a preferred professional installer of a certain round hockey puck shaped thermostat. They burned me too many times, and I try to rip one off the wall every chance I get. And that's just going to happen with this device if it don't work out right.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to what our end goal is, and the golden triangle makes sense, like from a contractor perspective. But I think it's like, all right, what is our goal in terms of like the product? Is it hardware based? Is it software based? Like, are we, trying to make money with what this is going to do, whatever we decide to do and move forward with, or are we doing it just to do good, or is it both?
Well, I think what Ben said is you had a slide there about our goals. And
Mhm.
one of the first bullet points on that slide was don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, how many of these temperature sensing products are out there? How many energy monitors are out there? How many versions of Measure Quick like products are out there?
Yeah.
I mean, I like figuring things out on my own, but to some degree, I'm also quite lazy. Like, I mean, if we can just use this stuff and bring it together, I have no intention of reinventing the wheel, as you say, Ben. So okay, we have great products on the market, but each one of them has a fault, a pitfall, if you will, right? And so can we, again, I'm just going to keep hitting it home. For me, it's the visualization. It's a dashboard idea. It's getting that. And I agree with you guys that not every homeowner wants to see this information. Absolutely true. Most of them want a check mark or an X, a happy face or a frowny face. But let's not forget that there are homeowners out there who already have had all kinds of bad experience as a homeowner, and they do want that information. They might not want all of it, but they want some of it, right? Some of them might want electrical data. Some of them might want temperature data. Maybe they only want temperature data on part of the house because that's the part of the house they had trouble in 10 years ago. But it's about bringing that information forward, right? So two things here that I'm seeing, right? Don't reinvent the wheel, and then prioritize education and learning. The better we can bring this data into a visual way, into a simplified little Venn diagram of what's happening with the system, if you know, I think that's important because it will help educate the homeowner and the technician contractor to what happens and what they need to learn to move forward.
And I have related to that, like, kind of related to the considerations is like, a problem statement about, like, because for myself, I kind of want to take this a step further in what I really imagine that this thing could be is that it's not like there regarding those considerations, there are so many things that are doing, they have good enough features, because like most products on the market are always going to be good enough. It's so rare that you're going to have a perfect product out there because of the constraints of our reality that we live in. Is that there is not infinite amount of money to be able to make the amount of scope just happen, and so in either time. But I believe that there is a basically within the quadrant of all of the products that are out there. I kind of alluded to this last session too, is that there's something in there that is actually a little bit like related to this big problem. And so it's not just hey, I want to build something that's cool. I want to build something that's fun to tinker with, or something that gives me some psychrometric data. I think that there's this opportunity for this to be a little bit more of a toolkit that can go and here we go. So like this was kind of my hypothesis, is that there's like a bit of a toolkit that is able to prioritize that learning, where it isn't competition with any of those other platforms that are out there. It could be applied commercially, like there's derivatives that you could create, whereas if you wanted to roll this out in mass to a very particular customer set that wants like some really advanced features, then you can. But kind of starting off with the scope kind of being more about kind of learning and having control, having agency over where pretty much no traditional private company would let you have that agency over that data. That's kind of like that interoperability, that agency, that flexibility of interface. It's going to probably be hard pressed to find a single private company that would say that, oh yeah, we'll just build that for you. Or like even us creating it, like the business case, the business model for making that actually a private business, that's challenging.
Yeah, I don't see that taking off. That's more of a do good sort of thing. But I think what we could look to is there's a ton of. I was having a conversation with someone earlier today where they were saying, yeah, if you're in the right state, if you're in the right province where you are, in the country. There's state incentives, national incentives. There's there's the Department of Energy, like loan officer or loan program, that could put money towards building something like this. And then how you deploy it, and it's what are we achieving? We're achieving better HVAC, which equates to healthier homes, better comfort, less spent on energy, which means more resilient grid. That could be what we're building this for. If we just shift our minds from like HVAC nerd, I want to know everything about my house. Okay, well now how can that concept bring good to the overall world without necessarily making money, but just making sure that now everyone can, benefit from our nerdiness, I guess.
Money talks.
Yeah.
I mean, for one, we got to find a billionaire. I don't know any.
Well, Musk in his cars was building that heat pump that was supposed to change the industry. That was 7 years ago, and it's still 7 years away.
I think that nothing takes off in this world without everything's driven by money. So people either got to make money or they got to save money. One way, it's either in energy, it's in taxes, it's in something. Doing things for the. I'm sorry, I think I have an understanding of how the system of things works. That doing things for the good, and just because that should be done, we can't even get people to RTFM.
Well,
so it's
one of the problems. One of the
Go
problems. Sorry, Tim. I thought you were done. One of the problems is just in many ways getting people to change doesn't happen until it's forced upon the masses. There's always going to be little groups there that will pick it up, but they'll always stay as little groups until it's forced upon the masses, I think. So like you guys are all in the States, or Ben, you're on East Coast, but like I have a digital power monitor here for my meter from my hydro company, right? My electrical company. But I can't actually get any of the information from it. That they keep it to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sorry, I totally thought you were done there, what you were saying.
I was kind of running out of steam.
It's all good, but I do want to comment though, is there is space for projects that are a hybrid of doing good, open source, and private interests. There are many of them. Basically, the entire freaking internet is built on top of that infrastructure. How Linux runs the entire internet. And that is an open source platform that has a for-profit company that is involved in maintaining the core functionality of that system. And so there are ways to be able to pair these things together where it does make the money faucets go, Tim, but it's not in the traditional sense where it all has to be extractive or profit-driven value. Like Chris, to your point, is being able to look at, like, there are so many unsolved problems that these for-profit companies are not properly solving, because some of the problems now that the world is starting to tune itself towards is towards public good, because, oh, look, humans, we actually kind of we can't eat money. Like, money can't cool down the earth. Like, and so there are these incentive programs that I think are going to start shifting things a little bit more towards the direction of being like, oh, so can you actually, like, what you're doing here, can it make a really big impact for the betterment of humanity? And then if you make a profit while you're doing it, good. But sometimes the project or the organization that really can be effective there might have to start off with its values kind of level set for that public, or that the impact based on public good, instead of it being specifically for profit to start with.
Yeah. I mean,
Need an HVAC Elon Musk.
No, Elon Musk is I won't go on a huge rant, but that is a constructed marketing narrative where he comes from diamond blood money. He has had like venture capital, like him and Peter Thiel, like they start. Anyways, he is not a benevolent.
If you're looking for investment, Musk will buy anything, but he also kills programs and ideas. So.
Yeah, I think like you just had a conversation, Ben, with someone who worked at one of the national labs in the United States, and I know that those throughout the past like 80 years at least, way older than I am, like their whole thing is just doing good. It's like taking public money and building the things that we don't even know are in our lives every single day that came from initial research that happened in those labs. And it's pretty amazing to see that. And I think that in terms of like incentive programs for doing good, it could be an option, but it just all comes back to, the dashboard that we would want to build and how to, make an impact and what our goal of that impact is.
And Tim and Donna, there's in a lot of these projects, because I've probably, Chris, you've been probably a little bit more seeped in the Kool-Aid of all the different technology, variety of different technology projects that are out there, kind of like me, is that there oftentimes are like, different layers to this, where there might be like a core group, which is like getting all of the like technology going, that are just benefiting from all of those outcomes without needing to be like hyper involved in the creation or maintaining of, let's say, the open source nature of this. I see there absolutely being an opportunity that if there was like an open source platform that at the core it's open source, but then you can build all these for-profit things on top of it, whether it's apps or other kind of embodiments of hardware that would be able to be like, hey, this is my exact perfect spec of hardware that I want to be able to run my maintenance business on. And like that could be packaged together into something that then now benefits from this core group maintaining the open source sort of nature of this super flexible and interoperable platform, which on like next week, I actually get to have an interview with the founder of Home Assistant, who like they built exactly that, where it is this like, it is a core group, it is a for-profit company that now maintains this, one of the biggest open source projects on the planet. And they're making money off of this open source project because they found a business model that just, it works for all of their community members. So like the business model of being able to combine that public good with enough money to kind of keep things moving is very possible.
Well, that's a space I'm not familiar with, but a space that I am familiar with is HVAC owners, especially as private equity starts eating into the industry. Money talks. It's going to be a challenge that we can't ignore. You can have people creating an open source platform for the good of humanity, but the people that are going to be buying these have to see that they're going to make money off of it, because there's not a lot of benevolent large HVAC company owners out there. So it has to be people either running towards something or running away from something. I said that the outlook or outset of our discussion. It's either got to save them money or it's got to make them money. It's just what makes the world turn around. So I'm going to stand on my soapbox there. I don't know about the production side, the technology side, but I know HVAC owners, man, and you got to make it. It's got to be worth their while for them to invest in it.
I tried to sell to HVAC owners like for the past 6 years, and I agree with you. And I think if what gets built is done right in the way that it should be by nerds built for contractors, it will save them money. Because if it is just a software and we're using, maybe the cheap sensors and everything else, and the information that we can give to a contractor to improve, efficiencies in their business, in their service business. I mean, that's it. The amount of savings that a contractor can have, depending on how many trucks you have on the road, just from having the right information given to the right person at the right time, is close to immeasurable. We can put a dollar amount to it when we get in and try and sell it to them, and the right owners will get it, and they understand it because they know what their overhead is, they know what their burn rate is, they know what each truck costs every time it goes out on the road.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think
they also know how
it will make sense,
how much it costs to get a new customer. And
oh yeah,
they also know what it's going to take to get butts in trucks. So that is the biggest hurdle I think that's going to come into this industry in the next few years. It's already here, is the skills gap. And so solutions need to solve the skills gap. And that's a language that I think owners can get behind. Also,
yeah. that and what you said, that it costs more to find a new customer than keep a current one. That was one of the key selling points that we had with our information was, hey, you have this person who's been, doing maintenance with you for the past 5 years. What's changed in the service that you provide over the past 5 years? Maybe nothing. Maybe they have a, Chuck in a truck who comes down the road and says, hey, I'll undercut his price by half. How loyal is someone going to be if money does really run that, if you haven't built the right relationship? So if you as a contractor are not taking new technologies to your best customers, then they're going to go somewhere else. And that's another way to upsell this.
And people get home security systems. They pay a monthly fee for home security systems. The technician never comes out, hardly ever, right? They're just paying it for that sense of security. And people do it gladly. For the one time that they need it, it's going to be there. And they don't go, at least I don't think they do. They don't go and they don't change pest control companies. They don't go and change home security companies. It's just there, and it gives them a little bit of peace of mind. And peace of mind, I think, is a great selling point for the typical American consumer. You have a system that is essentially monitoring your HVAC system the same way that your home security system is monitoring your cameras and detecting certain faults and sending you alerts and sending you only the alerts that you need to see. And you pay a monthly fee for that. And then I think that company now can service more customers with less people because they're not sending out a technician to do a maintenance that's going to take an hour and a half to 2 hours. They're sending them out there for a half hour to clean some coils, look over a unit, give the customer some options for some upgrades. Because again, HVAC owners, they don't make any money by sending someone out there to clean coils. They make money by selling accessories. You can get someone out there to do those things and ethically, and they're not consuming a bunch of their time hooking up gauges, sensors, checking performance when they may or may not even be qualified to check it properly. So great potential, but you gotta be in the mind of the end user. And the end user is, of course, a consumer. It's also the contractor that's got to sell
it. And the technician who has to install it and interact with that end user and training them and making sure that they're on board and they feel included in the process as well is pretty big.
See, I think, again, going back to my idea about Measure Quick, the technician, once the thing is put in and it's just reading, I mean, we got companies that are using Measure Quick right now and making a profit and commissioning systems. I mean, it's being done. It's being done by mid-sized companies, large companies, and they're growing and they're succeeding, so it can be done in certain cases. You get now you plug in that Measure Quick system, and the technician really doesn't interact with it. I mean, that's being done remotely. It'll send you faults if it sees something's going on. If you're a technician, you want to tap into it, fine. But the maintenance technician that's just going out there washing coils and checking units, that's what he's there to do. He's not checking Measure Quick. He's not having to hook up probes and trying to map this and all that stuff's already been set up. And again, just speaks of butts and trucks. We decouple that portion out of it because we're going to have less and less people that are qualified to interact with it.
Oh,
Don, I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. But again, majority of HVAC companies are small companies. So the maintenance technician is the guy who's going to come back and evaluate. and he is the guy that's going to sell. That's just not just me. I'm saying, so what you're saying then, Tim, again, not just because it's measure quick, but the process itself then seems ridiculous in the eyes of the customer. I, Mr. Baker, I'm going to come by and I'm going to be your maintenance tech, and I'm only going to clean your coils and furnace and that. And I'm not going to be the one to tell you whether or not it's working good, though. Though I can't do that, I have to come back with this device, and then this device is going to tell me that. And then, like, so how many trips to the house are we talking here? Or how many hours when they expected it to be a 1 hour thing?
No, I think you as a technician come out there and you do the normal maintenance work that we've talked about. And then if you want to pull a Measure Quick report live off the web, you can do that because it's constantly monitoring the system. But I think you're there in the house for less time, and you have more time to discuss other things like upgrading filtration, dehumidification, all the ethical sales that we can get behind. Your person can be trained to look for those things. Because again, what time of year are we sending techs out to do these checks? It's March. You can't check air conditioning in March anyway.
You want to be sending them out in March, but that's not the way it goes.
Okay, so you're going to send them out in April, May, and June when you should be out there running demand calls and making money.
What I'm saying is customers phone for regular maintenance regardless of what day of the year it is. I mean, we as contractors want to do that maintenance in the spring and the fall, but that's not what happens, right? And
it happened with my business, but I mean that.
Well, if your schedule is solely dependent on what you yourself decide it to be, okay. My experience is we're not only a maintenance contractor, though, we're a 24-hour emergency service company. So if they need a cleaning in July in 33-degree weather, well, that's what I'm doing. Like if I get to a house and I realize that the reason they have no cooling is because the furnace is filthy, that now just turned into a maintenance call.
But that shouldn't be a customer that you're regularly maintaining.
Well, yeah, but that service call that changed into a maintenance call on site should not then turn into another evaluation call, which then turns into a sales opportunity. Like, I throw caution against forcing so much upon people, right? So I get what you're saying, that you have the idea of having a system that checks everything the way Measure Quick hooks up, but you're talking as if it already exists, right?
I think and I don't want to speak for Tim or for you, Don, but what I hear from both of you right now is that it is, at the end of the day, just about solving a problem for the customer. Like if you arrive on site for a service and it turns into a maintenance, you're solving a problem for them, but you need to have that conversation with them so they know what problem you're solving. They know that you're doing it for them. Tim loves using Measure Quick and all of that data. You're hands-on, Don, and really do that. And I think that's one of the issues we're trying to solve and talk about is you guys are two very different people in the industry, and we're trying to solve problems for the end user, make money doing it, and then also enjoy our day. Like at the end of the day, make sure that our days are going well. So if it utilizes more technology, great. If not, but you make a personal connection with a customer, and you're able to do that either with the Measure Quick data, with data from sensors that we've installed in our monitoring, or just from the fact that you're a friendly face and you wipe your boots when you go in their house. I mean, really, everyone is different. And I think if you're solving problems for the end user, then they're indebted to you. And that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about using this kind of module on a brand new service customer that calls you out of the blue that hasn't had their system serviced since they owned the house 8 years ago, and it's finally not keeping up. That's not a person that you've been servicing that you would have this module on. It's a person you could sell that module to once you've done the maintenance and the cleaning and gotten the system back working correctly, now you can sell them a service agreement, and your service agreement comes with that module. And then I would like to think that you'll never have to come back to that customer in the middle of July and wash a coil, because you're doing it every year in March. Unless it's some greasy restaurant, and I get it, there are cases like that there. But typically, if we can plan our maintenance around our shoulder seasons, that helps keep our people busy. It keeps our business profitable. And then we wrap up with those maintenances right around the time when we hit demand season. And that may be when some of these alerts from these systems start coming in, because that, now we're actually in the demand season. But I see this as a solution for maintenance agreements, for service agreements, to try to service more, have more of those with less people. So if I didn't explain myself right the first time, I apologize. That's sort of like what Sensi Predict was. It was a maintenance program device. It wasn't something that we just put on and like fire and forget.
No, I think what caught me is that we're now into talking about how to sell something, and we haven't even decided what this something is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the
but that's what vision is.
But no, but you're jumping 200 miles beyond the mark that we've even decided where that mark should lay.
Yeah.
And the mark is close to a lot of the existing solutions, I think, in some ways, but like that then puts it in that dangerous area where now it reinventing the wheel. So that's kind of where I do think that this idea might diverge a little bit from having a kind of an embodiment of a monitoring device that it basically replicates some of the things that are already on the market. Because like if it's not the current offerings, there's going to be a couple more that are going for that mass market solution that everybody else has, like right now. I think that this is, at least my personal opinion, how I would want to be involved in something like this, is if it is solving some of those unsolved problems that probably don't follow a traditional business model. And so, because I think in that exploration process where you have entirely different constraints of what you're trying to solve, there might be able to be some very unique solutions that come out of it that could solve some of the problems that just are plaguing the market, that are underserved by everything else. So with that, we went a little bit over what the original schedule was. And I think because of the mishap in that stream is that it started off a little slow, and then it actually picked up a lot more at the end with the people watching, and like in the time that was actually over scheduled, there was more people watching. So anyways, I really appreciate all of your time. And I think we'll continue to do some of these. I think there will be there's still opportunity here to figure out what something could be. But for now, let's call it a night. So,
yeah, thanks, Ben. I think these conversations are great to get all these different heads together and just talk about some stuff and hear from other people listening to us. I mean, that's how I first got involved. So, just from listening.
I'm reminded of what Henry Ford said, that if people want, if I built something that people wanted, I would have built a faster horse or something like that. I may have just like completely screwed that up, like George W. Bush. Yeah, he can fool again. But but something along those lines, like, and that's what kind of Jim Bergman was doing with Measure Quick. It's like no one was asking for it; he just did it because he thought it needed to be done, and it's slowly gaining traction. And I think the same way here, it's like just getting an idea out there. I mean, I just appreciate the ability and the opportunities to barf out my idea for the masses, and then who knows, something may happen of it. This is about all you're going to get out of me. Like, I'm an HVAC guy. I don't know anything about IoT programming or the industry. This is about all I can give you. So
love it.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And you guys all got some really great ideas. And Tim, honestly, like we'll have to chat. I want to know about your experiences with those things you're working with. So, yeah, it's I look forward to more discussion. I think it would be interesting to bring in some consumers or some other business minded people to think, people outside of this industry, who the people who normally don't think about this stuff. If we ask them to think about it, what are their answers going to be? So yeah, anyways, you guys, aside from that, everybody have a good night, and